Kate. I have the financial astrology, social media, business website, Profit with the Planets. I am a very experienced financial astrologer. I do astrology across various assets. I do tend to invest in equities myself because I don't like to sit at a computer all day watching candles go up and down. I tend to focus on IPO astrology, and what that means is using the sort of astrology charts you see with the wheel all over social media, and then looking at what we call initial public offering, which is an IPO or incorporation charts, or any kind of chart of a financial asset when we've got a kind of clear date. Now, I did do a video in November last year, which I did put out for subscription. And I have kept that content fairly low key because obviously if someone pays for something, we're not going to go then put it out for free. But as I have put in this sort of little Twitter thing up here at the top, all the way back in November, I was looking at a really strong transit in the IPO chart. I'm making a video purely just using the astrology wheel. Now, it's not to say that there aren't smaller transits. As I'm writing this, I was recording this, it is first day of March. We have just had the incredible Bitcoin move based on the Russia tensions. I don't even know where it is, like 15, 19% of us seen all sorts of numbers going around. But when I should say, looking at the astrology for next year, because I made a video on 2022, I saw this really, like what we would consider a really strong transit using IPO astrology. And so I just put all my focus on that, and I want to show you what that is, and I'm kind of going to turn it into a mini lesson on IPO astrology. I don't really focus, and the thing is, I don't even do Bitcoin astrology, and because I specialize in IPO astrology, I've written 2 books about it. There was this one major transit, so I was like, okay, that's what we've got to be looking at. So I'm going to show you that and what it is, and how just knowing, if you understand, if you've actually kind of studied, you can't really make this stuff up. It does, you can kind of have fun with it, but this information has been passed down for like 20, 30 years by astrologers before us, and they have done extensive study what transits move equities the most. Now, Bitcoin is new, so we are kind of taking an educated guess. However, I'm going to get into that on the video and show you why. 6-9 months ago, and even with all these big lows, I am just going to make a video about the up move. The kind of down moves is this whole other thing unto itself. But why, all the way back in November, and you'll be able to see on the top of my Twitter page, sort of all the way back in November, and actually I was looking this even before, while we were thinking March 2022 would be where things really either started to change, or when, I guess, what Bitcoin's done, would we have a secondary high, double top, new high? That is not what this is about. This is looking at time and where time and price meet together. Now, it is really kind of intro level IPO astrology to know these 3 transits. The very first book I wrote, Financial Astrology for Traders, only contained 3 transits to look at, and this is one of them. So this is why, if you're prepared to do a little bit of study, I know video and all this sort of stuff, but it will make all the difference. You've got to be really careful. It's all great that we've got all this stuff on social media, but the real knowledge comes from people that know this stuff and have used it, or have experience, or understand these sort of outer planet combinations, or combinations of planets. That's the key to financial astrology. So you do have to know this stuff if you're actually going to trade with it. It looks all great if we're holding it and we want to see, what's going on with it. But there are 3 really key transits of about high prices, and we're kind of at one of them now for Bitcoin. And that was the forecast, and here it is. So I want to show you that and show you why. Look, this is what I think, and I just want to make it clear, this is only using the Bitcoin IPO. This is not based on amazing other astrological forecasting methods. I do specialize in IPO astrology, and it was a forecast and it seems to have come pretty good. So I'm going to show you what that's about. Now, I do use the 9th of January. I know most people use the 3rd of January. There's a blog on my Profit with the Planets website. You can go and read that. I'm not going into it here. I focus on using outer planets, and that's because that's where the trend comes. We're going to get all this stuff going on. To me, that's just noise. You're not going to be able to pick the trends or understand price trends if you don't understand the kind of big outer planets and how they work in financial astrology. Now, on Bitcoin, things like Mars and Venus do create this kind of short-term intermediate tops and stuff. So it's not to say, and I think I've actually got a chart up. Let me just have a look. I've got a chart that I'd made where I'll come back to that later because here we are here. I just put this on my screen. These red lines are kind of like transits that do create tops and bottoms. That is not what this video is about. It is looking, what was that big transit where we could think a big move is due if you were stuck in it. How am I going to get out of here? Time, you know, where do we maybe want to get out? That's no financial advice here, by the way. This is just based on IPO astrology. But, you know, what's the kind of big transit here? Or kind of pretty much here we are. So what we've got here, these are, look, when you've got a chart that's only a few days difference, and this is why it's really good to use outer planets. They do most of the work. But, you know, if you don't know the exact time or day or stuff like that, like we do need the day, but you're never going to have these outer planets changing. So this is specific to Bitcoin. If you've got some people using the 3rd, some the 9th, it doesn't matter because our big meaty guys are always going to be at the same degree in the sky. Most of the time, you might get that one, you know, but in this case, that's how it is. Now, what we've got here is, I would call this kind of one of the main transits in this chart. It is specific to this chart with this date as where all the other planets are and stuff. But we have what we call Uranus opposite Saturn. Uranus rules here crypto. It rules, it's a massive planet in financial astrology, but specifically to Bitcoin, it kind of does rule crypto and Bitcoin and stuff. It rules change. It's got a massive job. Uranus in Taurus, as you know, has started the whole, or you may know, you may not, the whole crypto stuff. So we know Uranus is massive to cryptocurrency. Now, Saturn in financial astrology, I'm just going to give the ABC version. You know, it can bring in the tough stuff and depress prices in transit and stuff. But, you know, it's an important planet in an IPO chart. Being red, it's called retrograde. It's working a little weak, but, you know, they're kind of right opposite each other. And so this is a really important part on the chart. Now, we can't make that up. We need to have seen something, you know, at these degrees or these placements or whichever to know this. This chart I use just because it's this date of the 9th of Jan. It's the date Satoshi released the email saying, oh, look, I've released Bitcoin to the public. You know, it's even got a timestamp of 5:05. There's nothing else with these charts that will give you anything so specific. So, you know, it makes sense to move. And that's the date he wanted it out there. So we would call that like a launch chart or something like that. Anyway, so we've got the sun, what we'd say at 19 degrees, and Uranus here. But what happened in May 2021, or around May, and I guess we might even look quickly at the chart just to kind of bring it into some context. So here we are here, this massive, look at this. So 13th of May, 10th of May, bam. And what that was an eclipse. I'm going to show it on the chart because I want to show the importance of these two planets and how it comes in. I've seen all sorts of strange reasons why that, look, I'm not to say I'm the be all and end all knowledge of this, but it was really obvious that it was the eclipse if you understand this stuff. So on the 10th of June, now the thing is, eclipses can show up early. They also can show when Mars moves. When Mars moves, what we say to the degree of the eclipse, that's probably going to be a bit confusing if you don't understand financial astrology, but Mars can activate an eclipse. Now, Mars actually happened to be, because, you know, here's Mars here. A month earlier, it was at 19 degrees Gemini. I might even go back. I'll actually quickly show you that because it's really important to understand, because knowing the context of how this eclipse worked on those planets of Uranus and Saturn, we know that we want to take those into account on the chart. So here's Mars here, and if we move back a few days, it probably came in a little bit earlier, but it technically activated. So let's have a look. It's actually even in April here. Let's have a look. So it might have just been that the eclipse came up earlier. I seem to remember it being quite poignant to time. So that's the 5th of April 2021. So that was about here. So it's kind of started the, you know, here's the top, the 14th. So, you know, it's come in this bit here. And then the news has obviously come in to create this downtrend. So that technically activated the eclipse. Now, that eclipse, we'll get back to the IPO astrology. Let me just pop that back on. It's squared Saturn and Uranus. Now we know Saturn can be the tough stuff, the taskmaster, low prices, and Uranus rules crypto, and bam, down it went. Now eclipses can last for a couple of months. There's written a whole book about it. Won't go into that here, but they really smash prices in financial astrology. They're really important. So when you're doing this IPO stuff, you have to understand. At some point, it is a little advanced, but you will need to get, if you really want to do this properly, you will need to understand how eclipses work. Even the one coming in May, you've got all these people saying it's going to, even the Russia stuff, right? That's going on now. Ukraine have all this stuff at the eclipse degree of 25 Scorpio. Now they're activated in December. I've got a whole other video I'm making about that. Even the day Mars was at that degree, Putin and Biden were holding talks. So you can't be looking, you have to sort of, it takes a long time to learn this stuff, and this is why study is really important. We can guess, but we're probably not going to get a really proper result guessing. But you have to start somewhere. So but this is sort of where on your journey, if you want to get into this stuff, you kind of want to long-term think you're going to go. But anyway, the point here, so 19 degrees Gemini, 19 degrees is your Uranus. And even the sun, that's why I like this chart, because it worked really strongly. Even when something's at the degree of the eclipse, you're going to get an extra big reaction. It means it's quite strong because it's picked up exactly. But anyway, the thing is, we know these planets really work in the Bitcoin chart. So all the way back in November, if I even move this back, ages ago, here was, Jupiter down here, and we got this really, the last move came Jupiter conjunct Neptune. That's one of our big transits too. But what we could see was coming, this is sort of December, you could even have gone like back for miles. You knew Jupiter was going to due soon here onto Uranus, Jupiter and Pisces, and everyone said Jupiter and Pisces is terrible for Bitcoin. Well, obviously it has crashed quite a bit, but things, maybe some, look, I don't know, because I don't do the science stuff, but what we're seeing here is that we've got this really, really strong transit called Jupiter conjunct Uranus. Now, that is one of our top 3 IPO transits we look for uptrends in price. It's really important. There's one that's involved, some other outer planets and stuff like that. But there are 3, actually there's even 2 big ones, and this is the second one. This is one that's bigger. So with a guesstimate, because we don't have enough data on the Bitcoin chart to be able to know what happened the time before, we know that Uranus rules crypto. Now, interestingly, Uranus rules nuclear. You get a lot of war stuff. You get, all the, out of the blue surprise. Uranus is also a surprise. Now, there's nothing good about a war and where we're at, but Uranus didn't see that coming. So, and Jupiter expands what it touches. So this news has come out all of a sudden, no one expected, to do with crypto, to do with things like war, nuclear, and here goes. So this is, look, as I said, there are astrological methods, but using the IPO, I really do believe this whole move here is purely about this. Now, this comes in at the end of March. Because I've worked with these for about 10 years, have seen this come early. We have certain rules if you're really going to study this properly, where we really can kind of go, right, that's my plan, it could fall here, it could come up here. But sometimes these show early. And what I really believe is time and price and conditions in the world have just met up perfectly for this Jupiter conjunct Uranus. Jupiter expands what it touches. Now, these outer planets are really powerful. So sometimes we say that we're a watch in financial astrology, but generally there is no control. We always have a bit of a window, but we're in that window now. It's a little wide, but we would say, and this is it here, Jupiter conjunct Uranus at 5 degrees. So you may see it kind of go up and down, but I really believe this is the soul transit. And a lot of this stuff, I do watch a lot of the YouTube stuff because I teach, and I want, people will come to me and say they saw this on YouTube. There's a lot of noise, and I think it's completely unnecessary when you're doing IPO astrology, because you need, not unnecessary, if it's okay if you're day trading, but then you've got to get the void of course moon where, trends can change. But you want to focus on the trends. If you're focusing on the wrong stuff, you're going to miss the bigger picture. And the bigger picture at the end of the day, if we're trading or price, is kind of what's important. So there's a real need to understand what, in using IPO astrology or with Bitcoin or whatever. As I said, Venus and Mars will create the shorter term stuff in transit. But, these outer planets are really the meat in the sandwich, I guess. So there's a real need to know what planets are going to do most of the work, and particularly if you're in this and you're sort of, I'm really happy, it's so happy it's gone up for everyone, because it's really, really stressful. But we picked this transit, or I picked this transit all the way back in November and beyond last year. So knowing where these prices were coming up, this really big dip, knowing it's about 4 weeks away, it was a really good short-term entry here. Now, I can't tell you what's going to finish. I have a bit of a fair idea. But it really, this is where the art comes in. Now, what you might want to do, this is not financial advice, you might want to start looking at technicals, because don't forget, astrology, I call it the 1%. Most of the world is not using astrology, and when it's time to, say, meet resistance of a 200-day moving average, or, resistance at, top candles and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, the astrology is going to pick up the bigger world trends, and that's the beauty with financial astrology. The chart couldn't show you that one of the biggest IPO financial astrology transits was coming, so that's where the beauty of using astrology in the market comes in. But you have to use it in a way where there is some solid, I guess, evidence, back testing. Again, this Bitcoin's a little bit different, but we know from the eclipse when it smashed the price that we can really start to look at this point on the chart. So if you're focusing on all this stuff going on, it's one transit. That's all you needed, So it's really good if you want to pull back and if you want to learn this stuff, get into learning what the big financial combinations in IPO astrology are, because that's always going to affect the downside and the bigger moves. With the eclipses and these really big kind of financial combo outer planets and stuff like that. Each chart in financial astrology then has sometimes its own planets which reacts to, and there's ways that you can work that. I won't get into it. So what I want to point out, we also have what we call a Jupiter Sun. This could be quite a lot going on in the markets over the next, even 1 to 2 weeks. Let's hope for some optimism here. But what's going to happen? Jupiter's going to come here. I can't really, and this is not financial advice, and it's not to say other stuff. It depends on all the geo-global stuff and, this new enthusiasm. But on an astrology level, that's the game. There's not really a lot after. And actually what's going to happen is Jupiter's going to oppose Saturn. So, here it comes at this exact. This is just about the up move in price, this video. You want to keep, and when I say keep it simple, and it's called KISS, keep it simple, stupid, but we're not saying anyone's stupid. My mentor on Wall Street taught me to read charts like that. And I really do think, as a teacher of IPO financial astrology, do that too. Keep it simple. Ignore the noise. Forget the moon. Don't say not to use the full moon, because okay, some people are like, I don't know, it's not something because you want to focus on the trends. So scrap 80% of stuff and just focus on the stuff that makes price go up and price go down in trend. So Jupiter Uranus is a trend trade. Sometimes you're going to get a 1 day reaction, but generally it's a combination where we see a swing up in price, and often it can be quite substantial because it's in our top 3 kind of magic transits, so that's the trade. I'd love to go in and say it's all this other stuff. You might say, there could be something to do with this Venus and Mars conjunction. But, this was picked back 6 months ago as this is the time you want to watch. Keep it simple. And here is where you will fine tune it with your technicals, your charts, news. I know some of you don't use stops. It might not be the worst known financial advice provided. It might not be the worst strategy, as this is going to come in if you don't understand astrology and go exact. Because what's going to happen after that, I will just quickly add this in, Jupiter will oppose Saturn. That's kind of like the opposite of Jupiter conjunct Uranus. It's another big, we know the Saturn picks up, and an opposition is quite different to what we call a conjunction. They're kind of shouting at each other. So you've got to be mindful that's there. Saturn conjunct Neptune, I don't know. Maybe a little Venus, but you've got some really big, heavy other financial combinations coming in. So I don't think a stop would be the worst thing. Protect your profits, because what, 2-3 crashes now, I'm sure no one wants to go through that again. We do have this Jupiter Neptune conjunction. Who knows what's going on that way, you know, even before, I would say, you know, in this early April. But be mindful, this is done. And astrology can shop early, it rarely comes in late. So I do believe this is the move. How long it goes for, I don't know, but we have got confirmation of the move yesterday. We said March, it's now March. Everyone's back in love with Bitcoin. You know, so protect the profits is the most important, and ignore the noise. Keep it simple, stupid. So I hope that helps some people. Just remember, the outer planets are what does most of the work, and the eclipses. And yeah, hopefully make another video for you soon. Bye.